Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 429th film from 2021. It's the supernatural horror film called No One Gets Out Alive. This one's directed by Santiago Menghini and stars Cristina, Rodlo and Marc Menchaca. I'm Jesse, I am your host. Thank you for joining me today for this Netflix original film. As always, if this is a film that you haven't seen yet and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because I'm going to spoil this show as we go. And I was sort of having a little bit of a think about this in the car today while I was listening to a podcast that I was sort of really engaged with. And then I was like, cool, I can just turn the car off and rejoin once I get back in the car. And it sort of brought back some memories of when I was a little bit younger, I guess, on a commute to school in the car with my dad. And there'd be segments on a radio show where you just sort of be like, oh, can I just stay in the car for a little couple extra minutes so I can listen along and hear what's going to happen or what the end of the story is, and our world's changed. So as always, that's sort of my little reminder, because radio, you had to hang around and listen. But now in this streaming podcast world, this is the chance to give us a pause and come back later, because you can come back later. You're not going to miss out. So let's get back into the film. This film, No One Gets Out Alive. We start with our fast flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film's all about. So this one, it's about a migrant who not only struggles with life in a new country, but with the loss of her mother and the weird occurrences in her place of residence. There we go. If that sort of intrigues you, maybe give this a watch. But on Netflix, their little logline about the film is a young woman alone and desperately trying to get a piece of the American dream. What she finds instead is a Pandora's box full of her worst nightmares. And then while you watch Netflix, it goes on to say, desperate and without documentation, a woman from Mexico moves into a rundown Cleveland boarding house. Then the unsettling cries and eerie visions begin. Intriguing. This is interesting. So the working title for this film was the Untitled Andy Serkis Netflix project. And I was sort of interesting. Andy Serkis, that's the guy from who plays Gollum, isn't it? I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm 99% sure. Anyway, I looked it up. He served as the executive producer. So there you go. A little bit of a connection there. Some translations around the world. So mostly takes on the idea of nobody gets out alive. But in Chinese, it was called Kill Without Mercy, as well as Trembling Apartments. In Japanese, it's called No Way Out. In Turkish, it's No One Will Survive. And in Vietnamese, it's Nightmare with No Escape. So there you go. It's all about this idea of this house and struggling to get out alive. It is based on the 2014 novel of the same name by Adam Neville. But apparently, the film only makes use of the first half of apparently a very long novel. So there you go. So the second half wasn't used. The story was changed from the novel because it was moved from the UK to be set in the USA and have a Mexican immigrant as the main character instead. So there you go. A little bit of an interesting fact there. At one point in the film, a newscaster mentions that there's 4 lost hikers in the Swedish woods, and this is a reference to the 2017 film called The Ritual, which also used the same author, Adam Neville's novel, as the source material. And then there's 2 books in the office that stand out as well. The character goes into. There's one called Banquet for the Damned, which is also a novel by Adam Neville, and on top of it, one called Moda, which is the name of the demon in The Ritual, which I mentioned before. The director, Menghini's experience as a Brazilian Argentinian who immigrated to Canada was the reason why he took the opportunity to adapt the story. There we go, nice little story there. This was filmed mainly in Romania, so there you go, a little bit of an interesting thing. A lot of the establishing shots were done in Cleveland in Ohio though, and this hit Netflix worldwide on the 29th of September 2021. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? What's their take? So, on Rotten Tomatoes, it sits at 68%, so that's fresh. That's on 22 reviews from the critics. Audience, however, a fair bit lower, sits at 39%. That's on more than 250 ratings. If we head over to IMDb, it sits at a 5.4 out of 10 on 25,000 ratings. So in that middle range there as well. Same for Letterboxd, it sits at a 2.3 out of 5 on a bit over 51,000 ratings, but it's been logged by 65,000 people. And Metacritic, our traffic light system of red, yellow, and green. Green being positive, red being negative, yellow being in the middle. The critics have it at a 43 out of 100 on 5 reviews. So that's bang in the middle on yellow. And then the audience is also yellow as well at a 5.2 out of 10 on 24 reviews. So based on all of that information, you'd say it's middle of the ground. But what about me? What do I think? My early thoughts on this one. I think it was probably too slow and moody without any real scares or invested interest in what was actually going on in this spooky house for me. So I didn't really find it scary or frightening at any stage, and that's probably what I was expecting. So probably a little bit of disappointment from me for this one. The director, Santiago Menghini, this is his directorial debut, done several shorts prior to this, but is mainly known for visual special effects in a variety of films. So there we go. A future is probably there in directing. Let's talk about the characters. The characters in this film. So Amber. Amber is the main protagonist in this film. She is the migrant from Mexico who illegally crosses the border, doesn't have ID, all that sort of stuff, and is struggling, trying to make her way through as an undocumented migrant. And on top of this, she's haunted by the death of her mother, which is seen through some flashbacks. And it's made clear throughout the film that Amber had given up on her dreams and her ambitions of her own career and life goals to step away from this to take care for her mother when she was ill, and now obviously is facing those struggles of being in America with no family and no supports, and this is seen throughout the film. She's listening to a voicemail from her mother on her phone over and over again to have that connection still with her, and obviously that idea of grief and overcoming that loss plays a part in this film too. So Amber moves into this boarding house, as mentioned before, and the owner of this boarding house is a guy called Red, and he's a bit suspicious, but he's on the line of not being too suspicious because he has a brother called Becca who's sort of in the background and is seen as the harder brother and the one that you've got to be mindful of. So Amber sort of thinks that she can manipulate Red at stages, whereas Becca, apparently he looked after Red when he was younger from their abusive father. So that's the idea as to why Red is protecting and looking after Becca now. He's meant to be sick and they couldn't afford the hospital bill, so not sure really what's going on there, but the idea is that these two brothers run this boarding house for people that literally are down and out and have nowhere else to go. The one connection Amber does have in America is Beto, and this is Amber's distant cousin who also lives in Cleveland, and he has her over for dinner one night and offers one of his wife's jackets to her because she has no money for anything like that, and ultimately at stages, I guess, sort of. And this is probably highlighting the struggles of migrants who have family members throughout. If they've made it and they're doing well in a new location, they often don't want to be associated with family who might not be doing too well. So it's a tough situation for Beto, but he ultimately comes around and does lose his life to support Amber as well. Freya is the first resident at this new digs that Amber comes across, and she bumps into her once and then sort of goes missing, and she believes that she's hearing her voice throughout the film. So that sort of adds some of the spookiness to it as well as Maria and Petra. These are two Romanians, again, so migrants that have rocked up with nowhere to go, and they live in this apartment and are there as support for Amber towards the end of the film. The final character I'll touch on is Kinsey. This is a so-called colleague and friend of Amber who is there to try and get her some new ID, to get her a real ID, an American ID, so that she can be successful in this country, but she just runs off with her money and takes advantage of her, which is also, I guess, a commonality amongst this film, just like the bosses in the textile factory take advantage of Amber, and the landlords of Red and Becca taking advantage of her at that boarding house too. The scenes, let's talk about some scenes that worked. What didn't work? It was hard to find anything in this one that really stood out because it's literally a culmination of eerie shots and flashbacks and spooky moments. But I liked the constant worry of Amber about being deported, and this is seen in news articles on the TV, and even there's a scene where Amber's sitting in a diner and the police walk in, and just that fear in the background and knowing what Amber's feeling like. I thought that was done well. Towards the end, there's a big battle at the end, I guess, and Amber comes with a bat, and Becca kicks her in the leg, and then Becca throws one of the Romanian girls off the cliffs, and Amber's ankle's all stuffed, and the girl off the balcony, sorry, not off the cliff, but throws her off the balcony, and then she sort of goes splat, and then Amber's like slicing his throat and just smashes the living daylights out of him. That was a good little conclusion. I liked that. But the things that didn't sort of work in this film, I mentioned this before with some of the info about the film with the books being on the shelf in the study, but Amber goes into this study for no reason at all. She's obviously, like, she sees this door open. She's been told not to go in there. She goes in there. She listens to some tapes. She looks at the butterflies. She looks at some photos. Like, what was she doing there? There was no inkling as to why she needed to go in there, why she would, or why she has the courage to do that either. That felt off. And the whole Arthur and Mary's ghost playing out the front of Amber, that was just lame. I thought it was. So Arthur and Mary were the parents of Becca and what was the other brother called? Red. And she can't see them, but it's like she can see this battle going in front of them. I don't know, just felt off. The themes, the ideas in this film, obviously touched on a lot of this already, but the idea of the American dream and the struggles of undocumented citizens and the exploitation that they often face when they have no actual legal protections. And also real life horrors and that constant fear of being deported too. Amber plays through that idea of overcoming trauma and pain and needing to let that go as well. And that's sort of seen through Red and Becca as well. They've obviously had a traumatic childhood, but now they're taking it out on others. So that sort of feels a little bit off too. I guess the butterflies or the bugs, they're a symbol or a motif throughout this film of this monster that's coming that I haven't even touched on yet, but we'll talk about that now, because my takeaways from this film, like the design team of this film, and to me, so there's this magical box that I haven't even talked about, that, well, not a magical box, but this haunted box that was an artifact that was taken by the heritage of the boys' family. And at the end, there's this reveal of this monster coming out of the box, and the design team, like, what were they thinking of with this look? It took away, it was like a very digital created fake looking monster, and it sort of takes away from what was a very practical effect led film with this almost ridiculous design of a monster that just took me away, and I was like, oh, this is kind of rubbish. Some other questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas, like this box, this artifact, it's haunted this family because it was stolen from another country. This is seen in a flashback right at the start of the film. So almost fitting that the boys, Red and Becca, see their demise. But at the end of the film, to me, I interpreted it as Amber's now trapped and she's taken over this box. So how is that fair when this is the character you're meant to be rooting for to escape? And I'm not quite sure. There's no understanding as to why she wants to be in control of it now either, or why she's happy with it, or if it's just that she's been taken over, so she has no choice. And I feel like the ancient Mayan mythology that has to do with this box has so much more to offer, because there was nothing given here. There was no background behind it or any understanding behind what it was trying to do. So to me, that was a waste, an absolute waste. And the butterflies and the bugs, I sort of spoke of them as like a motif or an idea about this haunting or whatever it was, but what did that have to do with anything? There was no explanation for that either. So that was also frustrating. And Red, there's this big deal that he makes to Amber when she moves in about not smoking, and then casually the Romanians are just smoking in the kitchen area and he doesn't really care. It just felt off, felt weird. And the idea, I said, obviously, that Amber's now the box / housekeeper, so she doesn't escape. I just don't like that. I don't like that. So I'm ready to wrap it up. Let's give it. We give the film a rating out of 5 to finish the show. I get the immigrant experience, but to me, it was more about the trauma side of things and Amber overcoming the idea of the loss of her mother. And it was hard for me. I couldn't help think of The Babadook, which is an Australian horror film that does this theme a lot better, and it's a much better film too. So I struggled with this. I'm giving it a 2.5 out of 5. It's an okay score, but I don't know. I think there's better films for you to see. We're on socials. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. Give us a follow, give us a like if you can. The question I wanted to ask was, what's good about Cleveland? Obviously, the film set in Cleveland, they make it out as if it's a pretty gloomy sort of town. I know MJ, who used to be on this podcast, is a big Cleveland sports follower, and he's been over there to watch some professional games and loves the city. So I want to pump Cleveland up as a city. Tell me some positives about the city. Let us know in the notes for this show. Other than that, we are back next week. Next week, we have another film from 2021. This one's a Spanish romantic comedy, and it's called Sounds Like Love, or in Spanish, it's Fumos Cancinos. It's directed by Juana Macias and stars Maria Valverde and Alex Gonzalez. So, give that one a watch if you want to. Check it out next week. Join me next week. As always, thanks for hanging out.